Hey guys, it's Anna and welcome to my channel. For today's video, I'm going to be giving you guys a very in-depth, step-by-step, nice and slow tutorial on how to do perfect eyeshadow. I wanted to go super in-depth and give you guys my best tips. Like, these are the tips that honestly changed the game for me and made me good at eyeshadow. I've gotten a lot of comments and DMs from you guys asking for me to basically do like a beginner's guide to eyeshadow, do like a neutral smoky eye. I feel like that's the go-to eyeshadow look that most of the population wants to know how to do. And you don't need to use the same eyeshadow palette as me. Just pick up whatever neutral palette you have at home. You can even incorporate color and use the same techniques. I'll be showing you guys the brushes I use. Again, you don't have to use those exactly, but then you get an idea for like what types of brushes are good for certain techniques. So without further ado, here are my best tips for perfect eyeshadow. Hi. Well, this is cute. Really up close and personal. You can see every little pore on my face. Love that. Sorry. I'm going to man up. But I'm going to man up because it's supposed to be helpful for you guys, so it needs to be up close. So before I go into the eyeshadow, I always set down some sort of a base to my eyelids to prep first. So you can use an eyeshadow primer, which they can come either clear or have some pigment to them and act like a concealer, or you can use a concealer. For many years, I stuck to an eyeshadow primer, but lately, almost like a year now, I've been using concealer. If you're working with a trickier eyeshadow formula, maybe it's like a cream eyeshadow, or maybe these powder eyeshadows happen to fade a little bit throughout the day, they might crease. If you're noticing any little issues like that with your eyeshadow, I would recommend an eyeshadow primer because that's going to help prolong the wear of your eyeshadow. But if you have a good formula, all you need is some concealer. So the one I'm using today is from Makeup Revolution. I'm just going to stamp a little bit on my eyes. Don't need a whole lot, but I like to do this just to cover any discoloration on my eyelids. And then, you know, when you have a full face of makeup on, it looks more cohesive when everything's blinked out, and then you're kind of building your structure and color on top of that. And I have noticed that some concealers do not work well as eye primers. Some concealers happen to not agree with certain eyeshadow formulas. For the most part, I don't find that to be an issue, but every great once in a while, I'll find a concealer that doesn't really work in that way. So just something to note. And then from this step, you can go in two different directions. You can either choose to set down your concealer or eyeshadow primer, which is my personal favorite way to do it. I just find that that way everything blends so much easier, so much nicer, because when you're mixing a liquid concealer or liquid primer with a powder, it's not going to blend as easily as powder to powder. So that's just my personal preference, and I know that's much easier on beginners, but some people enjoy not setting down their primer or concealer, and it's going to give you a lot more pigment because it is more wet. So you're going to get a lot of pigment, but you're also going to take a long time to blend. In my opinion, as long as you have a bomb eyeshadow formula, pigmentation should not be an issue, and setting down your eyelids should be fine, but it's all up to you. So this step really doesn't matter what type of powder you use. You can use pressed powder, loose powder, a eyeshadow that's similar to your skin tone. Oh wow, we can really see how dry my skin is this up close, huh? Isn't that frightful? So the palette I'm going to be dipping into today is the Colourpop and Shayla Perception palette. I wanted to use this one because the formula is bomb, it's affordable, and we're going to be using a lot of the neutral tones in here, so I feel like a lot of people will have these types of shades in their collection. So starting off every eyeshadow look, I always dip into a transition shade first. So that normally tends to be a light brown type of shade, and then the tone will depend on what kind of look I'm going for. It might be a little bit more neutral if I'm going in with blues. If it's going to be a warm smoky eye, it'll be a warm brown. And sometimes maybe you don't even want to dip into a brown. Maybe you want to do like a light blue if you're doing a full blue smoky eye. But I tend to stick towards these types of colors. When you're looking for a transition shade, the whole point is to transition the eyeshadow into your skin tone. You want it to be a little bit darker than your skin tone, so it's easier for all the colors you're going to apply on the lid to blend up into that. It's not going to look as harsh, and you're going to get that beautiful blown out airbrushed eyeshadow look. So I'm going to start off using the shade Culture, and then the brush I'm going to pick up is the Morphe M505. So as you can see, It's nice and fluffy. I'm gonna dip in, swirl my brush around in that, and then I like tap it off a few times just to make sure that we're not going in with too much pigment and you're not gonna get as much fallout. That's also why I like to start off with my eyes. Some people like doing their face first, and that's totally fine. But just as a precaution, I always like to do my eyes first in case I get any eyeshadow down here. I can just wipe it off and the rest of my makeup isn't ruined. And as you can see, I have hooded eyes, so I always like to bring my transition color a little bit above my crease because this is where my crease is. But if I look forward, that color is gonna get hidden, but I wanna see all the eyeshadow, so I'm gonna put it right above that. Like focus it in my crease, but be able to blend it above that a bit and just have a little bit of space underneath the brow bone. And I find that the easiest way to blend and apply is to basically do it at the same time. So if you want to move around eyeshadow, I bring it like windshield wiper motions like so. And then if I want to blow out that color and blend it out, that's when I do the circular motion. So I really just do a mix of both techniques, and I find that that works the best for me. And you want to make sure you're not pressing down too hard on your brush because that's going to make you lose control. You're not going to get that airbrush look as much. Let the brush do its work. So as you can see, I've blown this out into a wing-like shape. That's just my personal favorite type of shape when it comes to eyeshadow, but you can round it more and stop it over here and blend it, you know, down here, stop it over there, but just from my face. That's what I like. Then I'm taking that same shade, Culture, but I'm using an e.l.f. eye crease brush. And as you can see, this is rounded, but it's a lot smaller and a little bit denser. And you could use a shade just a hair deeper, but we don't have that option really in this palette except for these two shades, but I want to keep it more in the neutral zone. So I'm just going to stick with the brands. And I'm going to apply this directly in the crease. And this is just going to slowly deepen up that color because as we go down on the lid, we're going to go more towards full pigment. We want to be able to slowly introduce those colors. And then I'm following the same shape as I did with the transition, just with any excess product, flicking it out. Next, I'm going to deepen up the outer V, so I'm going to dip into the shade Played Out, and I'm using the same brush. You guys have to get this. This is from BH Cosmetics. It's the Quick Change Dry Sponge Brush Cleaner type of thing, and this has made doing eyeshadow so easy because if you have that favorite brush that just has the perfect shape or blends everything perfectly, just swirl your brush in here, it'll get rid of all that product, and then you can dip into another color. You're good to go. And with these darker colors, I always tend to tap off my brush a few more times before I go in because you have to be more careful with these because they're darker, more pigmented. And I'm going to start building the most pigment by this outer edge and carefully bring it up, but no higher than my crease. And then I'll bring the excess product, slowly draping it inwards, and then bringing it out a little bit, just continuing that wing. So now that I've mapped out basically where I want that color to be, you can see that this is obviously not a perfect blend. So I always go back in with the transition shade, or you can use a clean, fluffy blending brush and go over it that way. But I'm going to dip into Culture again. And I'm using the Persona Cosmetics brush. As you can see, it's still fluffy, but it has a little bit of a concentrated tip to it. So that helps to focus it in the crease. And I'm applying that color right over the edges. And the back and forth and swirling motions again. And already in seconds you can see what a difference that makes. If your outer V color is a lot darker than your transition shade and you need more help blending it, grab a shade that's in between the transition and this color and that'll help as well. And I will kind of finesse my way around these steps. I'll go back and forth however many times to get the perfect pigmentation and blend. So I might add a little bit of product, go back in with no product on a brush, blend that out, add a little bit more, add a little bit of the transition shade again, deepen it up a little bit, however many times you need. Take your time, use a light hand, dance around the steps, and you will get there. And then for this whole inner half portion of my lid, I'm going to go in with the shade Spill the Tea, because I want to keep it classic. I want to keep it neutral. So when it comes to shimmer shades, you can apply them in several different ways. You can apply them over top of some sort of a base. That could be a glitter primer. That's going to give you a whole bunch of pigment. Definitely the most pigment, because that's like super glue. You could apply primer again, or use some concealer to carve out the area. You could use your finger to apply on there. A flat packing brush, it's dense, it's going to give you the most pigment. You can use it dry if it's a balm formula. That pigment will be enough for you. If it needs a little bit of help, you can use any sort of setting spray that you have. Do like a spritz or two on your brush and then apply. Some people will wet it, then dip in, then put it on your eye. Other people dip in, spritz it, then put it on your eye, just whatever you prefer. So for me, it really depends on what eyeshadow formula I'm working with. With certain brands, I prefer to use my finger. With others, a brush. With Colourpop, I'm going to use my finger. I'm just popping that right on the inner portion of my eyelid. And don't worry about making it all even and perfect. You know, my fat finger's not going to get in that inner portion. We'll get to that in a moment. And then when I get to this outer portion, I'm going to use the lightest hand and not drag it all the way out, because I want to still keep that dark and matte. And then for that pesky little inner corner, I'm using the BH Cosmetics number 9 brush. This is from their Rose Gold Marble collection, and I am obsessed with this brush. I don't know what I would do without it, because it's so small and it has that perfect little dome shape, so it makes it perfect to cut creases, do little inner corner detailed work. It's amazing. So I'm going to use that to be able to reach in the inner corner. And then if you want, you can kind of use that to sharpen up the edges up top. I'll go back in with the e.l.f. crease brush, just with the tiniest amount of the shade played out, and just very lightly, like barely touching my eyelid, kind of wiggle the difference of the two colors. I can go back and forth, like I can go back in with the rose gold shade and pull it farther if I want. Next, I'm going to highlight the brow bone, and this is not a necessary step, but if you want to lift your eyes, kind of give a slight bit of like a faux facial lift. If you have hooded eyes, just if you want to do it, you can either reach for a matte shade or a shimmer shade. Personally, I like to go for the glow, and for this you want to use a lighter shade than your skin tone, so I'm going into Unbothered, and I'm hitting right underneath the brow, focusing the majority of the shine and pigment right here, right underneath where that arch is, and then kind of blending out whatever we have left over. So now, yes, hi, I did the rest of my face makeup. We're going to move on to the lower lash line, and I'm using the BH Cosmetics number 3 brush. This is from their Essential Eyes kit. Dipping into the shade Culture and running this under the lower lash line. Probably the easiest step. And then it really comes to personal preference, whether you want to drag this down and have a really smoky lower lash line, or if you want to bring it tighter and just kind of keep it closer to the waterline. And then I'm going to use the tiniest bit of the shade Played Out and really just keep that concentrated in the outer corner, and then meet it up with that shade up top. So I just popped on some brown liner in the waterline. This is from Persona, their 24-hour waterproof eye pencil. This stuff is incredible. Literally will not budge all day. And then for my inner corner highlight, I'm dipping into Unbothered again. And this is just going to make your eyes look a whole lot more eye-catching. When people see you, that's going to be the first thing they're drawn in towards. I just put on some of the IT Cosmetics Superhero Mascara, and this is the finished makeup look. Alright guys, so that is all for me today. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm so hoping that this was helpful. Please let me know in the comments down below if it was. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed, and make sure to subscribe down below if you haven't already, if you might want to see me in any more videos. I'd appreciate it so much. I hope you guys are having an amazing day, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye!